Hello, kia ora, g'day, I'm Philip Duncan from Weather Watch TV on YouTube with your Australia-only forecast through until the start of next week, and this is recorded on Tuesday, the 30th of September, the last day of the month. Let's have a look at the satellite imagery for this morning, and as you can see, the energy is all in the southeast. A front clearing out of South Australia, so the rain moves from South Australia and into Victoria and also Tasmania, with a few showers brushing parts of New South Wales and maybe the ACT as well. Further north of that, we've got some thunderstorms here, mostly through the Northern Territory, brushing some parts of the northeast corner of South Australia, and that may also just come into some parts of Queensland as we go through today. Elsewhere, not a lot of energy to talk about, just a couple of isolated showers around. So let's have a look at the air pressure map, because this shows a lot of sinking air pressure. In fact, there's no high pressure parked over Australia as we go through into this evening. High pressure is parked out here over the southern part of the Indian Ocean, and the next big high, or two of them actually, are out over the Tasman Sea, protecting Norfolk Island and Lord Howe Island, giving them light winds. The low to the north here is going to fall apart, the one around the Coral Sea, as will the one up here on the Solomon Sea. But the main feature, the low coming in around Tasmania, and with a little bit of high pressure just south of it, it's kind of keeping it boxed into that one spot. The other feature, the cooler winds coming through here around southern parts of Western Australia and into South Australia itself. You will feel those temperatures dropping over the next day or so, if you haven't noticed them already. So let's get into the forecast. Here we are on Wednesday. The polar boundary comes up very close to Kangaroo Island. So those of you in coastal parts of South Australia may notice that. Some showers around as well, although not very much. Similar story around southern parts of Western Australia, and the colour shading there right at the bottom of the scale. You might not even get 0.2 millimetres of rain, so barely worth counting. Further northwards, a couple of thunderstorms, as we just showed you on the satellite map, for Queensland and the Northern Territory. And in fact, we're seeing more life in the Northern Territory now. Haven't talked much about those of you who live there over the last few months. You've been in the dry season, certainly. Now we're seeing more low pressure up here, and while it's not doing a lot, it is producing some showers and thunderstorms that day by day look to be stepping up a wee bit. And elsewhere around Queensland, pretty quiet. Similar story in New South Wales, but there are a few isolated showers and those windy westerlies blowing through in some areas. Not majorly strong, but you feel them in some spots. So as we go into Thursday, those winds pick up further in the southeast. Classic squash zone. High pressure finally moving into South Australia, and between the centre of that high and low pressure here close to Tasmania, these are the windy southwesterlies coming through. So cold weather continues on around parts of Tassie with those sou'westers and showers, similar weather that you've been getting. You've also got some of that spilling over into Victoria with a touch of snow around the mountains, even snowing at times on the mountains going into New South Wales, right on the border of Victoria. Further north of that, that cooler airflow actually moves right up into Queensland. That will limit some of the humidity in some of the southern regions, including Brisbane. But just north of that, a few thunderstorms in the mix, and we go over to the Northern Territory, and again, those thunderstorms are hanging around. Western Australia dry, but we see a small area of low pressure on the mid-west coast. Let's go back to the southeast, because those windy conditions on Thursday will be felt in a number of areas. Now, this is, again, lower sort of on the severity scale, but it is just getting up to that 90 kilometre an hour mark. And once you're getting into that sort of purple shading, that's where you do have the risk of power outages or branches breaking on trees. And that brushes the southern coastline of Victoria, through the mountains, all the way up to Sydney. So even the Blue Mountains could be seeing those strong winds. Many other populated places aren't seeing problematic winds, just a gusty, blustery kind of spring day coming on through for you on Thursday. So by Friday, that windy stuff moves further out to sea. It heads off towards New Zealand. You're welcome, we'll take it. And we've got high pressure now moving into South Australia, around Mount Gambier as well, coming into Victoria. High pressure calming things down, but on the right-hand side of it, you've still got the southerlies and the showers. Temperatures are still down. It's not as bad as it has been though. Even though you've got southerlies around Tassie, just track the origins. Doesn't go very far south before you're coming back up and you're into the northern parts of Australia. So that airflow coming down and around the high and coming up as a southerly. So that's why the polar boundary isn't there, because it's not as cold as all the other southerlies you've been getting. And as that high moves eastwards and the heat develops and low pressure forms around Western Australia, the tropical boundary here gets dragged southwards. So that tropical heat is going to come in on the back edge of the high. So the high is dredging up a southerly on one side, dragging down tropical heat on the other side. And speaking of polar air, the next burst of weather coming through towards South Australia, Western Australia, on Saturday. So there is the cold front coming through. Temperatures will start to drop. It may not be majorly dramatic, but you should notice that as you go through Saturday, the polar boundary getting close to you and the tropical boundary not far away. A few people have asked me about this. What does it mean when the red line gets close to the blue line? Well, if they were people, they wouldn't know that they were near each other. So they don't. The tropical airflow over here doesn't know that that cold air is nearby. But what happens is, as they do get closer, you'll start to notice clouds building up, and you start to get a cold front forming, and that line of rain sometimes can stall itself. And so that's what we're monitoring to see what happens here on the back of the high coming in, and the low well south of Australia dragging up a cold burst of air. And you've got low pressure in between the two. This is a perfect recipe to see some rain forming. So thunderstorms up here in the tropics around the Northern Territory and the Kimberley dropping southwards as that red tropical boundary gets pulled southwards as well. And by Sunday, the red boundary coming right down here, almost to the coastline. It may actually get to the coastline. Just this particular update doesn't quite show it there. Yesterday's one had it just coming down over the sea. So really hot weather coming in to South Australia's northwest corner. You'll feel that as we go through Sunday. On the other coast, down here around the southwest, it is colder next to the polar air, which is sort of detached now from the main system, which is over the Great Australian Bight. Showers and thunderstorms really develop here around Western Australia. On the other side, high pressure nearby, you've got northwesterly winds. So it is warm to hot, it is dry, and it's a bit windy here and there. And if you're in Tasmania, please make the most of your Sunday. While it is a bit windy, the temperatures are milder and the skies are drier. And this is what happens on Monday. You can send your complaints to the Bureau of Meteorology. No, joking. So this is your weather. I know you're sick of these cold blasts coming on through. We don't create the weather, but we do forecast it. And so unfortunately, for those of you who are tired of it, there's another burst of it here. If it makes you feel any better, New Zealand's under the same boat. I don't know if that makes you feel any better, but we're getting it as well, especially over the South Island. So wintry weather returns to Tasmania here on Monday. Temperatures drop. Also, the severe weather box indicates gale force conditions through Bass Strait, brushing coastal parts of Victoria where there may be some thunderstorms. Jump over to the west coast. The low there deepening, heavy rain, thunderstorms. Those rainfall totals getting up to 50 millimetres in a day. So you might be getting some rain warnings as a result of that as it moves on through, and lots of heat around Western Australia, pretty much all of the Northern Territory and the top half of South Australia. Granted, it's not as populated there, but it's hot, and that hot weather spilling out into the outback of Queensland. Not really so much New South Wales, but because of that northwesterly flow going right up to about the Sunshine Coast and all the way down to about sort of Port Macquarie, those areas should be quite sunny and warm here on Monday as a result of that. So classic spring, typical October weather, but we'll be monitoring the cyclone season, which starts on the 1st of November. Hey, just a reminder, tomorrow being the 1st of October, we've got our next Climate Watch update that takes a look at the weather around Australia, New Zealand, Australasia for the month of October. So that is out tomorrow afternoon. Please check it out. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow with our usual Australia-only update.